Good morning, Year 5. Here are your answers from yesterday, where you were changing fractions into decimals and vice versa. And if you had a go at the challenging practice, there are the answers for that as well. Okay, here is your Fluent in 5 for today. Pause the screen and give yourselves 5 minutes, and then unpause for your answers. Here are your answers. Don't forget to go into your math assignment on Teams and update your scores each day before handing them in at the end of the week. Right, okie dokie. So we've done quite a busy couple of days then about converting fractions and decimals. So we're moving on to something a bit different today. We're moving on to adding decimals. Now, the great news is if your addition is already quite secure, if you know how to add numbers and if your place value is good, you will have no problem whatsoever in adding decimals, okay? Because it works in exactly the same way. So there's a couple of pictorial versions here. If you find it useful, you can make yourself a place value grid with ones and tenths, and you can use counters or pieces of Lego, or you can draw if you want to help you. Don't feel that you can't do that if you need to. If you're happy with the abstract method, of course you can use that too. Okay, let's have a look. Ella hopped 0.4 metres from the starting line. Ruby hopped a distance of 0.5 metres. How far did they hop altogether? So just like when we add whole numbers, as long as you get your place value lined up correctly, you can do it in exactly the same way. So we built the first number, 0.4, which is 0 ones and 4 tenths. And then we build the second number, 0 ones and 5 tenths. And then we add them all together. So we've still got 0 ones. We've now got 9 tenths. So the answer is 0.9. As an abstract written method, it looks like this. We just line up our wholes and our tenths, 0.4. Underneath there, we put 0.5 and it gives us 0.9. Okay? I'm just going to ask you to do another one like that for me. So I'd like you to do for me in exactly that same way, and you can just do the abstract or you can draw it if you want to. Could you do for me 1.2 add 3.7? Can you pause the screen and have a go, and then we'll see if you got the same answer. Okay, let's have a look then. So I'm going to do, here's my whole ones and here's my tenths. Okay, and then I'm going to say that I've got 1.2, 1 whole one and 2 tenths. And then I've got 3 whole ones and 7 tenths. And then to add them all together, of course, I'm going to do just that. I've got 9 tenths altogether and 4 ones altogether, giving me 4.9. Just to show you the abstract method, making sure I line up my ones and my tenths and of course the decimal point. And then exactly the same way, I've got 2 tenths add 7 tenths is 9 tenths. 1 add 3 is 4, giving me 4.9. Okay, right, what happens then if we need to do some exchanging? Well, the good news is exactly the same as if we were doing whole numbers. So here's your example then, 0.6 add 0.7. So the two numbers have both been built and now they're added together. It gives us 13 counters in the tenths column, and we know as soon as you get to 10 tenths, it makes a whole one. So 10 of those tenths are exchanged for 1 1. So it goes from 13 tenths to 1 whole one and 3 tenths. Written method looks exactly the same. We line up our tenths, 0.6 and 0.7. 6 tenths and 7 tenths would be 13 tenths, which is 1 whole one and 3 tenths, and then that gives us 1 whole one altogether. Let's do one then, same thing. So I would like you to have a go at this one for me, please. 2.6 add 1.8. Could you do that for me in either by drawing or doing the abstract, and then unpause to see the answer? Okay, this time I'm going to use the abstract only, so I'm going to make sure I line up my ones and my tenths. If you prefer squared paper to do these calculations on to help you line up your columns, then of course that might be helpful. Okay, tenths first then. 6 tenths add 8 tenths is 14 tenths, which is 1 whole 1 and 4 tenths. Put my decimal point in. We've got 2 and 1 and 1, gives me 4 whole ones, giving me the answer 4.4. How did you get on? Okay, moving on then. What about if we need to do more than one exchange? Here is the example for you, 5.4 and 7.8. So what's happened here is exactly what would happen if we had a whole number. So we start by adding our tenths. We ended up with 12 tenths. So one of those goes into the wholes column. And then we need to add that on. So we had 5 whole ones and 7 whole ones, and an extra one will give us 13. So we now have 1 10, 3 ones and 2 tenths. You can see that it's exactly the same as if we were adding whole numbers, but our decimal point is there. We need to make sure that we use that to make sure we're lining up our ones and our tenths and so on. Let's do one of those then. So could you please add together for me 7.5 and 8.7. Pause and do that for me, and then we will go through the answer. Okay, 7 whole ones and 5 tenths, add 8 whole ones and 7 tenths. Starting with the tenths, because we always start on the right, 5 tenths add 7 tenths is 12 tenths, which is 1 whole one and 2 tenths. Our wholes now, 7 add 8 add 1 is 16, which is 1 10 and 6 ones. Haven't got any other tens, so that goes up there to give me 16.2. Okay, let's go back then and look at the textbook. So it's asking you now to show the different steps we go through to add together decimals. So first of all, we might need to regroup. 16 tenths is how many whole ones and how many tenths? Hopefully you've said that it's 1 whole one, because that will be 10 tenths. And there'll be 6 tenths left. So that's how you regroup that. 3 tenths add 9 tenths would be how many tenths altogether? 12 tenths, which is 1 whole one and 2 tenths. Okay, could you have a go at number 5 for me, and then we'll come back together for the answers. Okay, 5A. 4 tenths and 2 tenths is 6 tenths, and there are no wholes. B, 5 tenths and 6 tenths is 11 tenths, which is 1 whole one and 1 tenth. 1 whole one altogether gives me 1.1. C, 5 tenths and 9 tenths is 14 tenths, which is 1 whole one and 4 tenths. 3 and 2 and 1 is 6, giving me 6.4. Okay, well done. I'm sure you're doing really, really well at this. I know that when we're in school, we're really impressed with your addition. So this time, it's not been written out for you. Be careful. Make sure you are putting the ones in the ones column and the tenths in the tenths column. Pause and have a go at these 3, and then I'll go through the answers with you. Okay, let's have a look then. 2.3 and 3.9. Ones and tenths, ones and tenths. Lined up nicely. 3 tenths and 9 tenths is 12 tenths, which is 1 whole one and 2 tenths. And then I've got 2 and 3 and 1, 6 whole ones. This is the one that was trying to catch you out. 5.9 add 8. That's 8 whole ones. Now, you could just leave it like that, or some people prefer it when they look the same. They've got the same number of decimal places. You could do that. Okay, 9 tenths and 0 tenths is 9 tenths. 5 add 8 is 13, giving us 13.9. And then last one, 7.6 add 4.8. Again, lining up my decimal places carefully. 6 tenths and 8 tenths is 14 tenths. 1 whole one and 4 tenths. And then I've got 7 and 4 and 1, which is 12, giving me the answer 12.4. Okay, right, over to you now then. There's a little bit of practice for you to do. So it's just adding numbers with 1 decimal place for now. You've got somewhere you need to put it into words, so it's just checking a real deep understanding of what you're doing here. You've got a few part wholes to do, and then you've got some abstract to do. If you get that finished, which I think probably most of you will, there's a little bit of an additional practice to do here. So on these steps, each step is the total of the 2 steps underneath it. So you can see here, 2.8 add 1.6 equals 4.4. So to get this answer, you'd need to do 1.6 add 3.4 and write the answer in. A, B, C and D are all working that way. E and F are a little bit more tricky, but I think some of you will be able to work out how to fill in the empty boxes. So give that one a go. I will come back tomorrow with your answers.